This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. If you don't already subscribe to Paramount Plus, please use our affiliate link by going to talkthroughmedia.com/Paramount Plus. Using our affiliate link gives us a little credit, which helps us to keep bringing you great content. U.S. residents only.
Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Talk Through. I'm Brian.
And I'm LT.
And tonight we don't have a guest host, so it's just the two of us. We'll be covering Season 1, Episode 7, titled The Serene Squall. And before we get started, we want to remind you that we now provide early access to a virtually uncensored version of the podcast that goes out quite a bit ahead of the episodes that go on the regular feed. Like, for example, right now, Patreons have listened to the first 5 episodes, and we've recorded episode 6, but nobody's gotten that yet. But so they've gotten 5, and regular listeners have only gotten 3. So, and that's because we do a whole lot more editing on the one that goes out to everybody else. But if you want a more raw version of us, that with all our mistakes and things don't quite sound as good, go to patreon.com/Star Trek TTM to sign up. And as low as $1 a month gets you access to those recordings. So that goes to help cover the cost of the podcast, which right now, trust me, is really, really appreciated. We don't have any feedback on Season 1, Episode 6. I checked to see if we got any that had come in late. We don't have any that had come on about the podcast because, as I just said, we haven't released the Patreon or the other one yet. So let's get right into this week's episode, Season 1, Episode 7, titled The Serene Squall, written by Bo DeMayo and Sarah Tarkoff, and directed by Sydney Freeland. And I recognize that name again. I believe she has directed The Walking Dead. So I always like to mention ties to The Walking Dead. Well, she directed, actually, it wasn't The Walking Dead, it was Fear the Walking Dead. The first episode of Ginny, Virginia. Anyway, yeah, so that I recognized her from. And, okay. And she's also done an episode of The Walking Dead World Beyond, The Deepest Cut, Season 1, Episode 9. That's why I recognized her from 2 Walking Dead series.
Yay.
Yeah, okay. I knew
Fear in the Kids Show.
Fear in the Kids Show. The description from ParamountPlus.com is as follows. While on a dangerous humanitarian mission, the crew of the USS Enterprise stumbles into a harrowing game of leverage with the quadrant's deadliest space pirate. Stardate 1997.9, the air date of June 16th, 2022, and had a runtime of 49 minutes and 37 seconds. So, LT, what would you give The Serene Squall?
Well, I think this is my lowest rating so far this run, and I gave it a 9.3 out of 10. What does firing gently even mean?
Yeah, indeed. I'm right there with you. I had a similar kind of reaction to it. Not my favorite episode. Didn't hate it, but it doesn't rank as high as the other 6 that came before it. So there's a slight dip.
Yep.
I originally on first watch, I gave it a 9, but I'm going to bump it up slightly to a 9.25. Vulcan spit takes.
And oddly enough, just as a preview, this episode, I think I had as many hold your horses as I did yeses.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I really couldn't bring myself to throw any no's. But for all the stuff that I was really excited about, there were some things that I had some reservations about. So,
I'm right there with you. Yeah, I had some issues with it that we'll go into.
Yep.
All right, listener ratings. Why don't you start it off?
Well, let's kick off our listener ratings with Wes from Minnesota. And he says, "Hi, saw this episode early and I enjoyed it. I give this episode 9.5 pike imitations of pirates that make Una uncomfortable out of 10.
I think Wes is just like rubbing it in our faces at this point.
Like, yes, Wes, we know you saw it early.
Yeah, I saw it early.
And we say that neener with love, Wes.
Yes. Jim from Orange says an 8.5 rating for me.
Okay. Rick from Cleveland says this episode was a lot of fun. I rate it 9.7. I'm just a nurse out of 10. Christine Chappell is never just a nurse.
Yeah, she was really good in this episode. Lastly, Brian from Colorado. He didn't like this one too much. He says, I rate this episode 6.5 out of 10 laser nets. There were some really great aspects of this episode and some really horrible aspects, hence my lower rating. I was going to rate this higher until the pirate shenanigans at the end really tainted it for me. All right. Well, let's go into our yeses.
Yes!
Okay, well, we'll kick off our yeses with Rick from Cleveland, who says yes for Pike's approach to inciting the mutiny on the Serene Squall, as though Alpha Braga 4 was a standard procedure and he was going to have fun with it. Number one's response being basically, not this again, was just as funny.
Yep.
And I will concur. He goes, yes for the dynamic between Chapel and Spock. I have enjoyed this relationship since the start of Strange New Worlds and the way it builds on something that was very subtle in TOS. Seeing this friendship grow between them, with Chapel giving relationship advice when she clearly has feelings for Spock, is interesting. Comparing the passion in the Chapel Spock kiss to the T'Pring Spock kiss was very telling. The T'Pring kiss seemed very Vulcan. I guess we already know how this ends up.
Yeah, I had that very reaction to it. You know, it's kind of like, I think in a lot of ways, he'd be happier with Chapel, but he doesn't end up going that way in the end. You know, I mean, he ends up with neither of them, but you know,
right. Well, it's something that I'm going to bring up later. I think for now, part of it is, like she said, he's a nice guy.
Yeah. And
I think that he is a very duty bound guy. And I think that sort of explains a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
So Rick goes on and says, yes, for the whole Boy Scout thing. It's in your file, Chris.
Yeah.
I also enjoyed Ortegas again this week. She always seems to inject some well-placed humor. And the intensity on her face this week as she piloted the Enterprise through the asteroid field without a beacon was great. Ortegas really stands out on a show where everyone is great.
Brian from Colorado says, yes, everything with Nurse Chapel and Spock in this episode was so well done. The nuance of their performance really showed the feelings they have for each other, even if Spock may be denying that he has them. The kiss they had on the bridge was impressive. I enjoyed the exchange about Spock needing to make a guess and use his gut, a gentle nod back to Star Trek IV. Yeah, I noticed this too, actually. The the way Spock fought the intruders on the bridge using the neck pinch, and how Nurse Chapel fought the intruders in the corridor using a hypo spray were very impressive too. And the way that he was doing that reminded me of Zachary Quinto in the 3 JJ verse Star Treks. Yep. We'd seen him, make those kind of moves too. Finally, the reveal of Sybok at the end was awesome. I can't wait to see where that goes. I'm a big Star Trek V fan. It's funny, we got a couple of big Star Trek V fans that are amongst our listeners.
It's shocking. We actually have Star Trek V fans.
They exist. They exist. There's, you may have to look hard and long for them, but you probably have fans of like every episode of Star Trek, no matter how bad it is, like Spock's brain, or my favorite, or lack thereof, Code of Honor.
Well, the guy from the old Columbia House commercial.
Yes, I know. That's what the very first time I saw that commercial, I laughed hysterically because I was like, no one in his right mind would say that was his favorite episode.
But you're going, dude, no one,
0.
Okay, well, and our yeses finish up with Wes from Minnesota, who says Pike cooking for pirates in order to create trust. Chapel and Spock really get into the kiss to release T'Pring from the bond. It looked like Ethan Peck and Jess Bush really enjoyed that. I think Bush more than Peck. Lol. Pike imitated a pirate when he got back his command. Oh, and when he demanded Angel surrender, I'm only going to say this once, get the hell out of my chair. Brilliant. Well, I mean, that was the line. And he goes, oh, and I love the twist ending. Sybok.
Yeah.
I love Star Trek V, so I enjoyed that twist ending.
All right, that's it for our listener yeses. What do you have for yeses?
Oh, boy. So I started off by saying what I'd said earlier. There are going to be some parallels between the yeses and the hold your horses this week, mainly because while I liked parts of it, there are things that I kind of raised an eyebrow over. So let's talk about Dr. Aspen, Captain Angel. I actually like the character as a whole. I'm going to bring up my points of contention in the hold your horses because they're not no's. They are definitely not good enoughs, but that was just by my reckoning. I think that the series is, we're 7 episodes in, and it's time for us to have a big, hairy, mud-sized villain. I like the idea that we may see her again, because that's one thing that, they tried to do in TOS is have some recurring bad guys. And I think that this is as good a choice as any. I enjoyed the fact that when she was still pretending to be Dr. Aspen, you could tell, and I didn't notice as much the first time, but as I watched it subsequent times, I was paying more attention that she was taking everybody's measure, that when she was talking to Pike, she was kind of seeing that he's a Boy Scout and he's going to do the right thing and he's going to go, help the helpless. And that was all part of the plan, because she knew that if there was a distress call, that Pike was going to check it out, that he wasn't going to take the safe route and not go look. She played Spock like a fiddle. There's no doubt about that.
No doubt.
Just injecting doubt.
Yeah.
Making him question himself, because one of the things that we know from as Larry said on Trekland Tuesday this week, this is not the same Spock we're going to have in 7 years. So
that's correct.
We know that Spock doesn't like being wrong, and Spock doesn't like guessing, and Spock doesn't like being inexact. So for him to actually go with his gut was probably painful for him. I'm not going to say out of character, but it's definitely not something he likes doing. So the fact that she sort of coerced him into it, and that was the whole thing, was creating that wedge of doubt. I think that was pretty crafty, because I really didn't pick up on it as much the first watch. I got a little bit of a sense of it, but the more I watched it, the more I could see the little gestures and the way she looked at him and the things that she said. So that was well done. I really liked that part. I really got a kick out of them, Pike and the people that were on board the Serene Squall starting the mutiny. The fact that Pike, was able to think on his feet, see the situation, and realize these guys may be ripe for a little Alpha Braga maneuver. And I enjoy.
How about a Brannon Braga remover?
Well, and that's
maneuver. I mean,
that was a big part of it, and why I kind of laughed when he said it.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a well-written little gambit there, and actually worked out fairly well. Since it's been such a topic of us in all the previous episodes, we finally know what will mess up Pike's hair, and that's being tortured. And that scene at the end when he told her to get the hell out of his chair, his hair was mussed. He was not all clean and well coiffed.
Yeah.
And that sort of added to me to the fact of, yes, my hair's messed up, so now I'm pissed off.
Yeah.
We've already mentioned it, but this whole interaction they're building between Chapel and Spock, I have really enjoyed it. I like the way that they're playing off of each other, and just that bit after he kissed her, when Spock's trying to apologize in sickbay, I swear the acting in this show is making me so happy, because Jess Bush, God bless her, she played that so well. And I'm going, she lied when she said she was okay. Cause you could tell. I mean,
oh yeah.
Granted, I understand it's acting, but kudos to her. She acted her ass off on that one, cause she made me believe it.
Yeah.
And then just the look in her eye and the way that she said, you're a nice guy, Spock, and everything's fine. No, I don't want to talk about it, but everything's fine. And I keep going, if it was any other man, they would know if she says it's fine, it's not fine.
Right. Yeah.
So, absolutely loved that scene. I really did. And I'm looking forward to see how this whole triangle of T'Pring, Spock, and Chapel plays out. I really enjoyed whenever the Squall popped in and all the pirates on the bridge of Enterprise were going, nothing's working. The systems are locking themselves out. And I'm going, once again, the old Reliant gambit comes into play. So I absolutely thought it was nice that, there are use of the secret lockout codes for other, Starfleet ships. And the bridge on the pirate ship with the wheel. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Even though I know all the people have talked about, joysticks on Federation ships, this is a big freaking steering wheel.
Yep. I have this down too.
And just seeing Pike with his flat coif gripping the wheel like Horatio Hornblower when they come charging in there. And of course, that was right before my favorite line. You know, how do you shoot? How do you shoot them delicately?
Yeah.
Because Pike wants to kick their ass, but Pike doesn't want to bend up his ship,
Right?
Because it must be a thing about captains of the Enterprise that they are very attached to their vessel.
Yeah. Well, I think he's captained the ship for 9 years, if we can believe 2259. He took it in 2250, I believe. So 2 5-year missions.
Right.
So, and
well,
probably in his case, if you do the math, he's probably going to end up doing 3 5-year missions and give up the captaincy to Kirk in 2265, I think. Yep.
And I have to admit, I liked the fact that Pike was doing the pirate voice.
I liked it too.
And I was going, yes, thanks there where fun goes to die.
I was thinking, I got this written down too. It reminded me of how people tell me to stop doing nitpicking, Brian.
Yes.
Yes. So I could sympathize.
Yep. Well, I haven't quite done the please don't. And I think really to wrap up, other than the interactions that Pike had with the pirates, the last thing I said was, Sybok? We got Sybok?
Well, I mean, it makes sense.
Oh, it makes sense.
Yeah, especially given some of the things that Angel says throughout the episode.
Right.
Like she's studying, her lover's brother.
Yeah.
And, there was a lot of that. And I got the same kind of, thing for that. Now, I wonder in his case, like, is his crime at this point just not being logical? Or did he actually, did he do something like he tried to do later in life, like steal the Enterprise?
I think he's been a naughtier boy than just not being logical.
Yeah.
Especially if he's running around with a pirate captain.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be funny. I haven't seen much reaction, but I'm going, if everybody was all flippity flip about Gorns, and we know how everybody feels about Michael Burnham, I'm going, well, Sybok is at least canon.
That's true.
And God knows, I've made the joke before about it must be awfully tough at, Sarek family reunions. And
I don't think we knew until now that Sarek had the child out of wedlock. There's a scandal.
I think we did.
Really?
I want to say that we knew that he was his older brother and that it was before Amanda.
Well, yeah. Yeah, that part we knew. I just had to play that.
Well, of course.
Yeah. Well, most of what I was going to say has already been said. I did like, because I had a similar reaction to Sybok, and the old steering wheel, I picked up on that as well. The only two things that haven't been mentioned before is I like some of the cooler alien makeup in this one. Like there wasn't a lot of alien makeup, but I like the guy with the horns on his cheeks. We saw some different kind of things. I guess they probably save money on the makeup by using like tattoos instead. I imagine that's easier to apply, but then again, I still liked that effect as well. So I thought that was kind of cool, especially Aspen / Angel kind of had a 3D tattoo because it had,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it had depth as well as, you know, length and width on her face. I thought it was kind of funny to have an Irish Orion, you know, not to make any, you know, disparaging jokes aside. I just thought it was funny to have a, like, you know, this green Orion kind of talking like an Irish guy.
They're always after his Lucky Charms.
Yeah. You know,
well, it's since we've had an Irish Romulan.
I didn't want to say leprechaun. Okay. Didn't want to say it, but that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. But we've had an Irish Orion. We've had an Irish Romulan. It just makes me think that there's obviously the alien Federation Standard Exchange Program must be big at the University of Dublin.
Yeah. You should have an Irish Klingon next.
Or I'm not sure. And like I said, forgive me because I can't remember which group of monks it would be, but maybe there's some group of Irish Jesuits that are plying the universe, teaching English to alien cultures.
Maybe. Aside from that, I think that's all I've got. So let's move on to our nose.
No!
Okay. Well, let's kick off our nose with Brian from Colorado. And he says the captured crew aboard the Serene Squall pirate ship was acting very strangely. They started out as characters we know, but by the end of their time in captivity, they were downright loopy and unbelievable. It started when Pike asked to cook, which was a little odd, but we know Pike likes to cook, so it wasn't a huge stretch. However, the way he delivered his lines when giving the food to the pirate crew was very off. Also, we learned at this time that the captain of the pirates is an Orion. There was nothing Orion-like about that guy at all, except for his greenish skin. He had a huge beard, he isn't very tall, and talks with an Irish accent. He's not imposing like an Orion either. Back to our crew. When they incited the mutiny, I felt it was too humorous, and I didn't believe it. Finally, the nail in the coffin was when they returned to the Enterprise and Pike actually joked around by talking in a modern-day rendition of a pirate accent. That's breaking the fourth wall, if you ask me. It was not something someone in the 23rd Century Federation would do. I had other notes regarding the performance of the Counselor Angel, who turned bad towards the end of the episode, too. She was great in her good mode, but when she was the adversary, I felt her performance was awful and quite lame. The only redeeming quality is that I think we're going to learn later how she's connected to Sabak, and it will be interesting to learn more of his backstory.
Rick from Cleveland is next. He says, no to the whole mutiny on the Serene Squall. Subplot makes no sense because Angel is the actual captain. Remy was only temporarily in command. As much fun as it was to see Pike manipulate them, it just makes no sense. Now we see her fly away in a different ship, but, you know, was that like the captain's yacht or shuttlecraft or something?
That was the ship they used to board the Enterprise.
Oh, I see.
That was the ship from the boarding party.
I see. Okay.
Because I remembered it because it looked sort of beetle-y. Beetle-ish. Okay, and our last set of notes from the listeners comes from Wes from Minnesota, who says, Jesse James Keitel really does a fantastic job as Aspen Angel, but the duplicitous nature of her character came as no surprise to me. That's why the rating of 9.5 came from. The half point was due to this.
All right. What? Oh, that's right. You don't have any no's. That's how
I don't have any no's.
That's right. Okay, so my nose. How is it Pike doesn't know that they are 2 days out of communication range of Starfleet? It has to be told that by Spock. You'd think he'd already know that. That was my take on it. It's like, well, wouldn't he already know that?
Maybe, maybe not.
Mm.
That's why the captain has people to tell him things.
Aspen / Angel suggesting an escape out of the net was a tell. And especially when you see that, not just that, but the tattoos on the face, because that's before she does that, before we actually see the pirates, and we see that all the pirates have tattoos.
Right.
So on their face, we understand what that means. But basically, yeah, I thought that there were some not so subtle things that pointed to her being the bad guy in this.
Yep.
That's my thought. And like was mentioned, Pike's Peak looked a little peckish this week. So I noticed.
Indeed.
I noticed it as well. So for those people that are loving that duo of Anson Mounts, you didn't get as much of that perfectly straight, vertical hair. He did have long locks, but they were it was more the parted variety, the kind like I used to get when I was a kid. So, all right. So, that's it for our nose. So let's move on to our not good enough section.
Not good enough, damn it! Not good enough!
Or for those that like it.
Hello, this is Captain Tilly. What the hell? What the hell? Hold your horses!
All right. Go ahead.
Okay, let's kick off our not good enough horses with Wes from Minnesota, who says, I don't think we've seen the last of Angel. The writers of Strange New Worlds have an opportunity here to make Angel a better villain than, say, Seska from Voyager. Seska was a nuisance to Janeway and her crew. Angel has an opportunity to be a better nuisance to Pike and the Enterprise. I hope they don't miss it. Also, the reveal of Sybok prior to Star Trek V does not break canon at all. Yes, there was no mention of Sybok prior to his appearance in Star Trek V, but that doesn't mean Sybok didn't wreak havoc with Spock in the past. As Spock put so eloquently in that movie, I was not disposed to discuss matters of a personal nature.
Yep. Which is not the first time we've seen him do that. Poor Kirk. So, he ended up not knowing a lot of stuff that we know chronologically.
Yeah.
Rick from Cleveland is hold your horses. Pike reviewed Dr. Aspen's file before she came on board. Were there no pictures? Well, either there were pictures and they were, forged, or there weren't any pictures and, I don't know, made it suspect, but I'm thinking that, they were placed there, considering the file didn't come from Starfleet, they probably maybe they didn't look up Dr. Aspen close enough. I don't know why they wouldn't.
I'm going to complain about that more in a few minutes.
Okay. Yeah, it's worth complaining about, I think.
Okay. Well, we've got Brian from Colorado who said, I didn't understand why Spock was drinking wine in the opening scene on the video call with T'Pring. That doesn't seem like something his character would do. I winced when Spock said that going outside Federation space was leaving civilization. That arrogant, unenlightened value statement doesn't seem like something Spock would say at all.
All right, LT.
Okay. Yes.
You got some.
I've got some. So let's talk about Captain Angel, Dr. Aspen there. Perhaps it's a value judgment on my part, but never trust anybody with a facial tattoo that looks like a snake.
Yes, I agree with that.
I mean, maybe it was a fern leaf. I don't know. It looked like a cold snake to me. And I was going, that's a bold statement for somebody who's
a former supposed to be a counselor.
Yeah. A former counselor. As someone mentioned before, when she changed into the cat suit, that was kind of telegraphing to me that something was about to happen. Going from the sort of, civilian, sporty looking stuff to the cat suit and combat boots.
Yeah.
And especially when they were fighting on the bridge. So apparently they didn't have any compunction about shooting at Ortegas or shooting at number 1. But I think goon number 3 that came out of the elevator seemed to be going kind of slow on the trigger, giving Spock an opportunity to grab him and give him the old chuckaroo over the rail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just like Rick said, so why didn't security have her picture? And let's go a little bit deeper. And I'm going to point my finger at you there, Lieutenant Noonien-Singh, security chief.
Ah, yes.
Because, Miss Don't Touch Anything, always do your background. So where were you, Lon? If she was in Starfleet, she'd have a picture.
Mm-hmm.
Now that she's a civilian, she should have a picture. It's the 23rd freaking century. You'd think that they'd have pictures. Do they not
pictures,
have
probably?
They don't have like Federation Google where you could at least look her up. I'm just saying, it just seemed like, this is the freaking future. How can you do that? Is she that slick that she could just, forge her 3D holographic identity papers, or that nobody actually looked? This is just sort of a personal thing, but whenever Chapel was in the corridor and she saw the people come rushing through from the pirate boarding party, was it just me, or did the hall seem very bereft of personnel? In fact, I would say that there were very few people wandering around the ship other than the primary characters. And wasn't that always a thing with like the old Enterprise when we were watching, classic TOS? There was always the milling mob going up and down the hall, some dude in overalls carrying a clipboard, the 2 crewmen that are walking chitty chatting as they go around the corner. There were no people on the Enterprise that I saw other than our primaries. And there's no way you can tell me that little tiny boarding party had corralled everybody up. Do you want to say that everybody was at their general quarter stations, so they weren't in the hall? I mean, even in TNG, when they were going to like battle stations, there were like guys running up and down the hall.
Yeah. I mean, we could have had some ensign not expendables.
Yeah. I mean, there were no, and even if the boarding party had come through and stunned everybody, there would be unconscious crewmen laying in the hallway.
Yeah.
I mean, this hall was just really clear and they never saw anybody. And so they got to engineering and locked engineering down. So where's Hemmer? Where's all the engineers that we saw?
Yeah, he wasn't even in the episode.
Well, right. But I'm saying engineering was absolutely dead bang empty. That just sort of was more glaring than anything else. If you've got 300 some crewmen, the likelihood of you running into somebody is still pretty good. I didn't think they had locked everybody in the rooms. To go on about my terror about Angel Aspen. So when she did the big reveal and all of a sudden we go, oh, she's a bad guy. I'm like, yeah, we kind of knew. It was kind of obvious. I kind of saw it coming. And then all of a sudden, and just sort of what they already said, she did really turn on the ham once she became the pirate captain.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, I like your character, but this is a little over the top here. The kind of the sideways in the chair and shooting phasers and being all dare I say, Roger Moore era Bond villainy. And to wrap up my thing about Angel Aspen, I just had a problem with the big monologue at the end. I mean, come on. That is like so classic bad guy. You're going to sit there and listen to her give her big speech. It's like, where are the security goons dogpiling her to a fare thee well? I just was like, really? You're going to let her give the speech and then pull out the obvious thing that she's been like making a point to have visible around her neck so she can disappear? I mean, okay, part of me was not so upset, but I saw it coming and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Just because it just killed me. Now, about the space pirates, it may just be me, but do all space pirates shop at the Mad Max boutique? I mean,
you know, I haven't thought of that, but now that you say it, I have to say, you know, you're right.
The paint across the eyes, the leather trench coats, the bad hair. I mean, it was just like, really? Do we have like the single, you know, dystopian civilization look that we're going for? You know, what do space pirates have to look like? You know, extras in some post-nuclear apocalypse movie. So this is strike two for Lon. Why didn't anybody see the boarding ship? So it came off the rock and it is approaching it's approaching the Enterprise. And when they dropped in on the Serene Squall, they were like, oh, well, they don't see us. They're out of range. Well, this ship like put the sneak right up on them and was right there. I mean, right there behind the Enterprise. And I'm going, strike two, Security Chief Noonien-Singh. You know, are we going to say, oh, well, it was stealthy. Oh, it was cloaked. Oh, it was too small to see. Well, doggone it. It was at least as big as a shuttlecraft, and you can see those coming. So, yeah, I had a little problem with that. And just to kind of put my last bit on there. Okay. So we saw Spock and Chapel kiss, and you could see there was some emotion. There was some feeling. There was something going on. So why is it at the end, after Spock and T'Pring make up, and T'Pring is being all sexy time with Spock, why do I get this feeling that with her, it's not, well, she's Vulcan. I can't say it's emotional. You know, I can't say.
Yeah, well, I don't think Chapel was acting too much there.
Yeah. So my thing is, why do I get the feeling that T'Pring is being awfully clinical about this? That knowing that she is sort of the psychologist at the psych ward, that her whole job is rehabilitating emotional Vulcans to make them embrace logic. I just get a bad feeling with her that she's not looking at Spock like, and she may have some genuine feelings for him, if that's the right thing to say between Vulcan relationships. But it's almost like, to me, that she's taken this awfully clinically, and it's almost like she's seeing Spock as a patient, almost, that she's trying to cure him of something, maybe, because I don't get that warm, fuzzy, passionate feeling when they're doing their alone time thing in Spock's cabin.
Well, it's funny you say that. I mean, I hadn't really thought of it that way, but you know, it's almost like she looks at Spock as like an example of maybe someone who's rehabilitated, you know, but not.
Right.
Someone has emotions deep down inside, but functions well in Vulcan society. So, like I'm thinking back to season 1 of Discovery, and they wanted to accept Michael Burnham into the Vulcan Science Academy. And it was basically like, oh, well, Sarek, you have your 2 pet projects, your half Vulcan child and your fully human child who has been raised by you. Pick one of them to go to the Vulcan Science Academy. And of course, neither of them do. It's almost like that. Like, it's like she's looking at Spock as like, oh, this is an experiment. Who could I learn from to be a better, I don't know, what do you call what she does? It's almost like, I hate to say it, but it's almost like, if this offends anybody, sorry, but we know like churches like this that try to like, convert the gay out of people, right? Like they're trying to, put God in the person's life so that they eventually reject being gay and be straight. And, it's almost like that kind of thing to me. So she's looking at him as she's not being fully, I'm looking for a word and it's not there.
Well,
but I think you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's why I'm still going with she's not looking at him as a boyfriend. She's looking at him as a patient.
Yeah. Yeah. A patient who she can learn from to help the other patients.
Yeah. And
like she's like, here's a good example of what you can be, if you reject your emotions and, become more Vulcan. This is what you can aspire to versus this is what looking at, forget the name, the pseudonym, he's going by, but
yeah, like I said, that after everything that happened, the more I see them together, the more she just kind of gives me a bad feeling, knowing what the end game is going to be, because they had to get from here to there. And this just sort of kind of points down the road of where we're going to end up to me.
Yeah. Well, for me, just a couple of annoying things that I had, while they always go back to the 20th and 21st centuries for literary entertainment or cultural references, it gets really annoying after a while. It's like, bring something in from the future. Although I guess that could hurt them at some point. But if they go into, say, the 22nd century, it won't hurt them so bad. But it just gets annoying sometimes.
Well, I always take it that the 1980s were the one part of the holotapes that survived the nuclear war.
The other thing I would say, and I never heard this saying until first season of Picard, where Raffi says this to Picard. Pro tip, this is an expression. Obviously, it seems to be something that people say these days, but I never heard it before, and I don't particularly like hearing it when I never heard it before. Every time I hear it, it's like, oh, that seems awfully current. So I don't like when I hear it.
Well, I hear it a lot in the circles that I run in, but it's kind of anachronistic for a future TV show. Yeah. Since we already had a point, somebody saying that they thought it was off to make the sort of anachronistic comments that were being made. It just seems like it's out of place. I I don't think it's a piece of slang that will survive 200 years.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of examples of that on this show and on the other Star Trek shows. So, okay. I think that's it for our Not Good Enough. So let's open hailing frequencies. All right. Our first bit of feedback is from Jeff, X-Force 11. Here we go. And it's a voicemail, of course.
Well, hello, Star Trek fans. This is Jeff, X-Force 11, leaving my feedback about Strange New Worlds, the Serene Squall. This episode just had the twists and turns coming, and I really dug it. Seeing Pike behind an actual wheel like a pirate was just so cool. I loved the interaction between Spock and Chapel, and it just kind of underlies what we see going forward, and they can't, but they've definitely got a connection. Just the ties to other Trek is so good. I just really appreciate what this series is doing and how well they're doing it. And man, this season is just flying by too quickly. All right, those are my thoughts. X-Force is out.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff, X-Force 11, for your feedback as usual. And you said a lot of things that I know I felt. It was cool to see Pike in front of a steering wheel. Arg. And the spike. I did that again, right? I put them together. I did that before. The Spock and Chapel interactions were really good. And, you know, it's funny, but if we didn't know their future, right, I could have seen those two being a couple, but we know that's not how it's going to end. So, yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Anything you want to add on?
Thanks, Jeff. I mean, I appreciate it. It's good to hear your enthusiasm because, like I said, I enjoyed the episode. I just had some things that kind of didn't sit well with me, but overall, I'm still loving it as much as I did in episode 1.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, you know, I'd have to do an average here, but, you know, we're still looking at the first 7 episodes are probably at least in the 9.5s.
Oh, yeah.
As an average, and probably maybe even 9.6. So, you know, this being lowest at a 9.25 for me, still, you know, says something pretty strong.
Yeah. And if this is as much of a dinger as we get,
yeah,
you know, that speaks to how well they're doing overall.
Yeah, like we've commented about Lower Decks and, you know, how good Lower Decks has been. And Lower Decks, each season has had a few clunkers in it, but not anywhere near. It hasn't reached this high level of consistency that Strange New Worlds has seen so far. You know, right now, pretty much every week we get in another good episode. So I'm pretty happy. The only thing I'm not happy about is the frequency of getting out our episodes. So something I hope we'll be able to change some point soon. But at least
we're working on it.
At least I'm back in Oklahoma now. So,
all right.
So there's that. All right. So now we move on to our written feedback. We only have one. Go ahead and read it, and then I have a comment about the last point.
Okay. Rick from Cleveland said, I love so much of this episode and all the subtle humor that was layered into the episode. For example, when Chapel and Spock are talking in the corridor early in the episode, Spock whispers, human sexuality, like he's your grandmother trying to talk about it. This is so out of character for Spock, who would be lost on the nuance of shame. I loved it. And he goes on to say, by the way, there's something wrong with the website. Every time I try to submit feedback there, I get there was an error trying to send your message. Please try again later. This happened last week too.
Yeah, and before this, we had a problem with it. There was an issue at first with a spam thing, and then what seems to be happening, and I'm not 100% sure of this, we got marked as being spammers. And the whole form wasn't working properly at all. It wasn't sending anything out. It wasn't doing anything. We weren't recording anything. So I rebuilt the form using a different plugin in WordPress, and I needed one that would allow me to do file upload. So I had to pay for that. That's, like I said, that's part of what the Patreon money goes for. So I had to pay a yearly thing for that. And now it seems to work. But what it doesn't do is it's not emailing yet. So we have to go in before we do a podcast each week. We have to go in and see if there's any feedback in there. So rest assured, I mean, the good part about it is all your feedback gets stored. So we won't have an excuse to miss any, but we won't get alerted when there's some. So, oh well. Hopefully we'll fix that soon as well, and we'll get alerted, and then we know, oh, there's some feedback this week. So,
yep,
yeah. All right, that's it for our feedback this week. Let's go on to our notes. Do you have any notes?
No, sir, I don't.
I just had a couple things to say. Jesse James Keitel identifies herself as non-binary, which I know some people had considered when they saw the pictures of her. They thought, oh, that's a non-binary person. And it turns out, like, at least in real life, she considers herself non-binary, but unlike Blue Del Barrio, she identifies as she, her. So I just mentioned this because I'm 55 years old and still trying to learn these things.
It's true.
I immediately thought, oh, non-binary. They must go by they, them. And then I look it up. It's like, nope, she, her. Like, oh, okay. Anyway, it's good that we all have that. And, especially with it being Pride Month, we're saying. So I support everyone's freedom to do and be with whoever they please. Face tattoos must be more commonplace now. I had a similar reaction to you, LT, when, and it's funny because I know what it was Howard Stern was talking about this. He was talking about, like, if you wanted to go out into the, and go for a job or something, and you had a face tattoo and you're against a similar candidate that doesn't have a face tattoo, chances are, depending on what the type of job it is, the guy without the face tattoo will probably get the job, or a hand tattoo or something like that. So I guess in the 23rd century, face tattoos are more commonplace than they are now. And they're not, like, considered gangsta or prison or whatever, that kind of thing. So,
well, I know that there are still some companies that do not allow visible tattoos.
Oh yeah, there definitely are. Yeah. Yeah. Vosh Couture is a Vulcan without logic. So that was just something that was mentioned during the episode.
Yep.
I don't really have much for spot the references. Obviously we see an Orion, which didn't look very Orionish, as I think Brian said.
Well, yeah, but isn't that unfairly stereotyping Orions?
It sure is.
I mean, who's to say there aren't chubby, bearded Orions?
Well, and the funny thing is,
I mean, just because we're used to guys that look like Lou Ferrigno playing Orion men.
Right. And the funny thing is too, that Orions are pirates, and here's an Orion that's a pirate, but he's not the usual pirate of Orion. He's like an independent pirate. So, I guess he does what he wants. Ston is what we see here for the first time, and of course Ston is the one that T'Pring eventually goes with, and you could see when they're walking together, he's staying very close to her. That's something I noticed. And of course we get the reference of at the end of Cybok, who Angel goes by Severius, but Spock later figures out that it was probably Cybok, and we learn that he's correct, or at least by the back of him that he's correct. Other than that, I didn't really pick up any other references, so unless you have any.
I do not, sir.
No.
I'll go with still wondering why you would go with Severius, but that's...
Yeah. Okay, so that's it for our spot the references, although this is another week where I may have some for next week, covering this week if I run into any. I didn't get to actually watch the Ready Room this week, so there might be some in there. Okay, so anyway, let's move on to news section and our Shipwide announcements. And of course, this means it's time for Wes Huntington to give the news.
Hi, everyone. I'm Wes Huntington, one of the two co-hosts of the Twin Cities Trekkies podcast, and this is your Shipwide announcements for this week. This week, Will Wheaton interviewed Jess Bush, who plays Nurse Christine Chapel in Star Trek Strange New Worlds. They talked about how she got the role and other things as well, why she feels that Christine Chapel has a crush on Spock. This episode definitely showcased her love and affection for the Vulcan. There were two featurettes in this episode of the Ready Room. First was an overview of past experiences with piracy in Star Trek history, as well as designing some of the makeup for some of the pirates of the Serene Squall. There was also a sneak peek at Episode 8, The Elysian Kingdom. Here's what's making news this week in the Star Trek universe for all you Talk Through Media Star Trek podcast listeners. On last week's Shipwide announcements, I let you guys know that Michelle Paradise had tweeted out a photo of the Discovery captain's chair with the quote, "Hello, Toronto." This week, showrunner Michelle Paradise tweeted out a photo saying that Star Trek Discovery Season 5, which is the first Season 5 of a Star Trek show since Star Trek Voyager in 1998, is now officially in production. The 10-episode season will be the shortest Discovery season to date, as this is going to be the first ever season produced for Paramount+. Season 5 will run 10 episodes and is expected sometime in 2023. Not only did Michelle Paradise tweet out that production on Season 5 was starting, motion graphic designer Timothy Peel was more straightforward on Twitter, saying that they had just started shooting the final episode of Season 2 of Strange New Worlds and the first 2 episodes of Discovery Season 5. And also, Doug Jones, who plays Saru in Star Trek Discovery, had also tweeted out pictures of his before and after shaving his head. He's been doing that since he got the role to make his makeup fit more better on his head. Back in April, there was a video from Gazelle Automations presenting a scene from Star Trek The Next Generation, specifically The Best of Both Worlds Part 1, when Captain Jean-Luc Picard was abducted by the Borg. This scene was animated in the classic 1970s filmation style, as if Star Trek The Next Generation were being made by Filmation Studios, which produced Star Trek the Animated Series back in the 1970s. Well, a few months have now passed, and we have a new one. It is a brand new animated scene in the style of Filmation, featuring a scene from the infamous Star Trek Voyager episode Threshold, which had won an Emmy Award for its makeup. Complete with TAS music, this scene of Tom Paris as the mutated version of himself, abducting Catherine Janeway and taking them to a planet where they become the infamous salamander babies, has now become a sensation on YouTube. As of this recording, it has over 310,000 views. And finally, if you are waiting to get a physical media release of Star Trek Picard Season 2, you are in luck. Paramount Home Entertainment has announced that Season 2 of Star Trek Picard will be available on Blu-ray Steelbook, Blu-ray, and DVD October 4th. The set will include all 10 episodes from the second season of Star Trek Picard, including over an hour of special features, including the USS Stargazer. The featurette takes a deep dive into the creation of the Stargazer from conception to build out, and features exclusive time-lapse photography alongside production designer Dave Blass, who brought the original TNG art department on board, including the famed graphic design artist Marco Kuda and design artists Doug Drexler and John Eves to recreate the latest USS Stargazer. The Chateau. Led by production designer Dave Blass and prop master Jeff Lombardi, the featurette explores the transition of Picard's chateau following his redesign and conversion to the Dataverse in Season 1. The trial is over. The intimate, behind-the-scenes look connects fans with John Delancey, who reprises his role of Q, playing a significant part in the Season 2 story arc. Rebuilding the Borg Queen. This featurette showcases actress Annie Wershing as she discusses stepping into the role of the Borg Queen. After 25 years, the iconic character returns through advanced design and production techniques, which are further discussed by designer Neville Page, prosthetics master Vincent Van Dyke, and makeup department head James McKinnon. Picard props. Property master Jeff Lombardi takes fans on a tour that showcases the various props created for Star Trek Picard Season 2. Picard passages. Alongside cast and crew, fans will follow the heroes from Star Trek Picard through time and space as they encounter new and old and new friends, as well as challenges in the latest season. There will also be a gag reel and deleted scenes. The Season 2 DVD is presented in widescreen format with 5.1 Dolby Digital and 5.1 surround audio and English SD subtitles. The Blu-ray Steelbook and Blu-ray collections offer 5.1 DTS HD Master English Audio and 5.1 Dolby Digital Audio, as well as English SD and French subtitles. Twin Cities Trekkies is a weekly podcast dedicated to everything Star Trek. My podcast co-host Mackenzie Flickinger and I talk about everything from the original series all the way through Star Trek Strange New Worlds and everything in between. New episodes are released every Wednesday. You can find Twin Cities Trekkies on every platform you can think of for podcasts. Our social media handles is TC Trekkies Pod for both Facebook and Instagram. You can also reach us by emailing us at tctrekkiespodcast@gmail.com, or you can leave us voice messages when you find the podcast at anchor.fm/Twin Cities Trekkies.
Well, thank you so much, Wes, for your extensive report.
Thank you, Wes, for the news.
Yeah, a lot of things going on. And I know that there'll be a few more things for next week, because I know Paramount Plus launched for the UK finally. So, but anyway, looking at the parrots for this week. Number one on top of the digital originals and on the overalls is Stranger Things, yet again, with 186 times the demand of an average show.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been pretty high, but it was as high as 212.9 times last week. So it's still, staying at the top, but it's, where it is. Number 2 is The Boys at 59.1 times. I think that just came out, the new season. Obi-Wan Kenobi went up a notch to 39.2 times. I think that... Did it finish this?
I believe it did.
Yeah. So that's probably why it went up. The Mandalorian still went down a notch from, looks like they flipped, I think, they flipped went from 3 to 4, and Kenobi went from 4 to 3. Then Our Flag Means Death at, Mandalorian was at 38. Our Flag Means Death at 32.6. And then staying at the number 6 position, Strange New Worlds with 31.4 times the demand. Last week, it had gone down a notch from number 5 to number 6. It was at 32.3. So it stayed at the same position, but the times were a little bit lower. It actually, the bands go in average, good, outstanding, and exceptional. And Strange New Worlds, the dividing line for exceptional is 32. So at 31.4, it ended up just shy of the exceptional range. So,
but still holding in there.
And then for the last 4, Star Wars: The Clone Wars, For All Mankind, which I haven't been able to catch up on that yet. I know that came out for a new season as well. Moon Knight and Ted Lasso, and both of those Apple TVs are new this week. I don't know if Ted Lasso came out this week as well. But anyway, that's it for our parrots. So to submit feedback and theories, go to talkthroughmedia.com/feedback, where you can submit text or audio. Or you can do it by calling 216-232-6146 and leave a voicemail. You can email us at strangenewworlds@talkthroughmedia.com. or post in our designated episode thread in our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Star Trek TTM.
If you'd like to support the podcast, you can like our page on Facebook. That's facebook.com/talkthroughmedia. And while you're there, write us a review. You can share us on Facebook and retweet us on Twitter, especially when we post a new episode is out. You can subscribe to the Talk Through Media YouTube channel, which is where you'll find our newest episodes first. You can subscribe to us in Apple Podcast or the podcast client of your choice. And while you're there, give us a rating or a review. You can go to podchaser.com, where you can rate and review the podcast and even individual episodes. Finally, the best way to keep the podcast going is to support us via Patreon. We would like to thank our Patreon supporters: Andrew Davis, Morning Pace, Trey, Mike, Robert Kaiser, Jeff Gentry, Kevin Lyle, Michael Carrier, Aaron Mays, Jeff Biacco, Brian Shiro, Kim Vogley, Kyle McAdams, James Robbins, and me.
Yep, and you. Yeah, and thanks to all of our Patreon supporters. They help pay the bills. All of our podcasts from the Talk Through Media Network can be found on the Talk Through Media all-inclusive feed, which, in addition to, if you're listening to us on the Star Trek Discovery podcast, which hopefully most of you are, that feed includes all the new Star Trek. It includes the Star Trek Picard cast, the Star Trek Lower Decks podcast, the Star Trek Prodigy by Rebinge It, and this podcast, the Star Trek Strange New Worlds talk through. So if you want all the Star Treks, get that podcast, except for the old Star Trek, which is Rebinge Deep Space Nine, which is on its own feed and on the all-inclusive. And of course, the Walking Dead talk through and Fear the Walking Dead talk through can be found on the Walking Dead talk through feed as well as the all-inclusive feed. And there's even a Fear the Walking Dead talk through feed for those of you that watch only that show. I can only think of one person that does. Speaking of that, the Walking Dead talk through is on a hiatus right now until when? August, I think.
Well, hopefully we're going to have a surprise before August 14th.
Yeah, we may drop an episode prior to August 14th, but anyway, that's what we got going on. Our next episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds talk through will be covering season 1, episode 8 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, titled The Elysian Kingdom. It is written by Akela Cooper and Onitra Johnson and directed by Amanda Rowe. Beyond that, I don't have any additional information on the episode. There's no description that is given. Did you see the sneak peek?
Yes, I did.
Anything you want to reveal?
It looks like this may be a Dr. Mbenga heavy episode.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And there will be shenanigans.
That's good. We like shenanigans. Hijinks. All right. Until next time, I'm Brian.
And I'm LT.
Peace and long life.
Live long and prosper.